From Washington, D.C. to the Central Coast, this is Focus with Farr, where our representative in Washington hosts in-depth discussions of important issues of the day. And now, Congressman Sam Farr.
Hello, welcome to another program, Focus with Farr. Very excited that we're going to have this opportunity as we end this year to talk a little bit about what Congress has accomplished. And I can't think of a better person to come and talk about it than our own colleague, my colleague, our neighbor, our wonderful St. Anna Eshoo, Congresswoman from San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Santa Cruz County. And Anna and I came in about the same time. She's actually 6 months more senior than I am. And she sits on very powerful committees, the Commerce Committee and also the Select Committee on Intelligence, and is a chair of a subcommittee which is responsible for all the multi-intelligence agencies. But can't talk too much about that on this because it's all classified. But we can talk about all the things that Congress has done. As we wrap up this year, and you've heard a lot of criticisms about what's going on, we want to kind of inform you on what we have accomplished. It's been a good year, and Anna, welcome to this program.
Thank you, Sam. I'm delighted.
Well, what do you think? We're here in our 12th month since we got sworn in January, and don't you think it's been a pretty productive year from experience?
I think it's been the most productive year of my 17 years in Congress, and it's been an exciting year. It's been a tough year because we know that the country is in very tough shape economically, but we really forged ahead. And now all of the things that we've passed haven't necessarily, those words have not necessarily walked into people's lives, but they will shortly. And we should talk about some of those things.
Well, first we started with this coming back here and getting sworn in and finding that our country had just opened up a huge hole, economic collapse. We had listened to all the world economists come in and tell us what we should do, and it was interesting that regardless of conservative liberal viewpoint, it was, you are the bank of last resort, United States of America, and that if you want to stop this downward spiral, you've got to take action now and spend. Get us first of all, the TARP bill, which was December of last year, and then coming back and doing a spend bill on stimulus, get money into the economy. And we've been criticized a lot for that. A lot of people don't think it was a right thing to do, but we've certainly in these last few weeks heard an awful lot of accolades that we did the right thing, and it did in fact stop the collapse. And
well, I always think that number one, that it's easy to do easy things. It's another thing to stand up and do the right thing when times are tough. And so even though I don't think either one of us got any thank you notes for voting for the legislation that everyone calls the bailout, because for all the obvious reasons, and the banks did take the American people and the American economy to the cleaners. But it was up to us as to whether America would fall off the side of a cliff.
And then we were able to.
That's right. And so these have been tough economic times, but every economist, from the conservative to the more moderate to the liberal, have said that we stopped a depression, and that we did. And then we moved on. One of the first things that we did was to design a package that would put money out into communities.
The stimulus bill.
The stimulus bill to help stimulate the economy. Number one, to save jobs. Number two, to create jobs. Number three, to help rebuild community by community in different ways, in approved ways.
And we took
the spending.
We took things that were already approved off the shelf, sort of shovel ready.
Yeah.
I mean, you represent San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties, and we know together, how much we were able to get into education and millions of dollars into the Central Coast schools at a time when they were having a state collapse. People will say, well, maybe these weren't that important, but Granite Construction, one of the major construction companies, told me that all the jobs they were doing in the United States, and they're headquartered in Watsonville, was from this money, and they've been paving streets and airports and things like that.
I think what was so important is that we emphasized to our leadership when we were shaping the package that especially on the education funds, that they not go to the state, but rather to our local school districts. We both come from local government. That's where our public service was born.
You spent 10 years on the Board of Supervisors?
I spent 10 years on the Board of Supervisors.
Nice.
How many years were you on?
I was on 6 on the Monterey.
So you succeeded well before I did to move on. But it went into every single school district. We didn't use a new instrument so that there would be new bureaucracy and the red tape that would come with that, but rather the tried and true forms. Now, our state is in a mess.
Oh, we're in a mess.
We're in a mess, and I think that the monies that we invested locally would have been maybe more appreciated if they were better times.
Well,
but whether we get accolades or thank you notes for it, we know that we did the right thing. I know that in other parts of my congressional district, both at Stanford University, at Stanford Linear Accelerator, at the Stanford Medical School, that very, very smart investments for the future, for our collective future, have been made there in research. And every American is going to win as a result of that. And these are tens of millions of dollars.
We put that money into all the medical records accounts,
That's right.
and those things won't. They won't really show up in the street for a couple of years. But when it does, we're going to bring down healthcare costs because you can handle these records.
Oh, sure.
But we also did. Speaking
that was my bill, at the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Great.
Well,
you know what that I'm very proud of, and I know you're proud of, is what we did for children in this country, the S-chip bill. And that was right away in January, right after we did the stimulus package.
Well, and there was such a struggle for it. I mean, people might think, who would ever be against that? President George Bush, vetoed that bill 3 times. And so we kept pushing the rock up the hill, only to have him veto it. We would try again. We tried 3 times, and he vetoed it. And then with a new president, we were able to ensure 11 million more American children. And for me, and I think for you, Sam, I think that when God calls us, those are the kinds of things we're going to be judged for. So that's a huge accomplishment for our country, and that we would start with the children first, and then keep the commitment that we've been talking about all of our public lives to move on with a universal plan for adults in our country.
You know what we also did, which is historical, we took care of veterans like they've never been taken care of in history. All these promises made that if you joined the service and when you got out, you would have benefits, you'd have access to veterans clinics. You have the beautiful Palo Alto Veterans Clinic.
And they sure know it there.
And we have the Capitola Clinic and the Monterey Clinic, and we have really upgraded the investment in veterans like no time in history. And I'm very proud of that. We're going to be building a new clinic in Monterey.
And as I look over, we have a tendency at the end of the year to look over our shoulder and say, not only to list out the things that we've worked so hard on, but what was the motivation? What's the overall plan to this? Are these just standalone bills, or is there an overall plan for our country? It's hard for people to see because they're having such a hard time. And we understand that. And we're in overdrive trying to come up with the right ideas.
That's why
but it was to create jobs, it was to save jobs.
And to invest
and that whatever dollars that we spent, that they were investments not only for today, but for the future, and that we would reform the very large parts of our economy, healthcare and energy, so that we would not be subject to a boom or bust economy in the future. If we only trim around the edges and don't solve those things, then we won't solve the issue of really shaping a much better destiny in the future for our nation.
Well,
those are the bills that we passed.
And we invested a lot in technology. We've invested, and we invested locally, and thanks to your effort on the Commerce Committee, to get this cockamamie, awkward formula that reimburses doctors in Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito counties the lowest rate in the United States, whereas Santa Clara County and other Bay Area counties get the highest rate. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean,
I think you deserve canonization, Sam, and maybe I'll just kind of sneak under the wire after that. But This is something that was unattended to for so many years for a whole lot of reasons that were not good reasons, but nonetheless we weren't able to get it done.
7 years.
There's no reason, that's right, there's no reason why our constituents should not receive or have doctors that will accept them because they're Medicare enrollees. And because Santa Cruz County, for all of these years, has borne an old designation, a rural county.
So did
it's
Monterey
still rural
and
in some
San Benito
areas,
counties.
right? But now, as we say, the fix is in. We fixed it.
Well, it's in the big health care bill.
It's in the big health care bill.
So far, it's in there. It's in conference.
That's right.
Senate hasn't acted on it yet.
Yep.
But
I was able to. I'm on that committee
So
for the people that are listening, and so I was able to do it. But no one knows this subject better than you do, and I think our staffs really deserve a great deal of credit
they do.
because they work so darn hard on it. They had their hearts broken many times too. So. Anyway,
well,
I think this time we win.
We did some interesting work on the environment, too. We've done this big national sort of I forget how we called it all. It was the National Parks and
Land Conservation Act. It's the largest conservation of lands in our country in over 3 decades. And I think that Teddy Roosevelt would be very proud that we're keeping that value alive in our country because we know in the precious lands, you have some of the most precious lands in the entire nation, some of the most magnificent and beautiful, and I share some of
you're the Bay Area.
That's right, and the coast side. That once the land is gone, you can't reclaim. It's not easily reclaimed. So I think that says a great deal about our collective values. So we're proud of that.
And thank you for the effort to upgrade Pinnacle's National Monument into a national park.
Yes.
One of the co-sponsors of that bill and had the hearing in committee, and that's moving.
You know what we should tell people, Sam, is that they have 2 members of Congress that really work for them in Santa Cruz County, the county that we share, even though I have a small portion of it. And I think
Actually,
everyone should know that we have. I do. I have more square
miles of
square miles.
Because you have all the mountains. And I have the shoreline.
Yeah, you have the shoreline. But together, well, first of all, they should know that we were friends long before either one of us came to the Congress, and that relationships really matter, and that we trust each other's judgment. I mean, we trust it.
Oh, it's you and I are like brother and sister.
Exactly, kind of joined at the hip. So people see an awful lot of politicians fighting with each other. You'll never see Sam and I fighting with each other. We're fighting for the people that we represent.
Well, we have such, when you look at it, Anna, what an incredible responsibility we have.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
We have almost 200 miles of California coastline in our 2 districts.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Aren't
is...
we blessed to have that?
Oh, it is. And we're both, big advocates of good, sound coastal planning, coastal conservation.
And we feed on each other's ideas.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit. What can you tell us that might be interesting? Just you get to serve, and I'm very proud that you're there because I know how hard you work at it on the Intel community. And not that you can talk any sort of the secrets. You can't talk about that. But what's it like being having the responsibility to do the checks and balances for an incredible number of intelligence agencies, not only NSA, but CIA and others and all the military intelligence
Well, first of all,
agencies?
most people don't realize that there are 16 agencies that comprise the intelligence community. They think only of the CIA and sometimes of the FBI and don't even see that the 2 may have a relationship, even though one is domestic and the other one is foreign. It's an honor to serve on the committee, but it's also frustrating because for the obvious reasons. So much of it is classified. And I think there's over-classification, number one. There's so much that we read in open source materials, but if you get it in a classified setting, then you can't talk about it. Now, isn't that the silliest thing? But it's serious, and it's been very tough. And I don't say this to be partisan because there were such abuses that took place through over the last 8 years, where we had black prison sites that were operated for the first time in the history of our nation. That the CIA operated those,
and kept them
where we detained
undercover.
People, where we picked them up and disappeared people. The whole issue of torture, the issue of the CIA lying or withholding information from the Congress. So these are tough issues. So now we're trying to turn a corner. Someone from our area, a former member of Congress, Leon Panetta, is now the director of the CIA. So I get to see him on a fairly regular basis. So I always say that my purpose at the end of the day, which is all of ours, because our number one obligation in the Congress is to protect our nation, the national security of our country. But when it comes to the Intelligence Committee, long after I'm gone from Congress, or even gone from this world, when the records are declassified, then the American people will see who fought to uphold the Constitution and to protect our national security at the same time.
And that's really tough to do.
And that's what my goal is.
That's why we're glad you're there.
Oh, well,
we're
thank
really
you.
glad you're there.
Thank you.
Let's talk for a moment, because without a doubt,
Okay.
we both had these town hall meetings on healthcare during August recess,
Right.
and we passed this remarkable bill off the floor. It's in the Senate.
That's right.
They're trying, as we speak, debating it right now to get their version adopted, and when they get that version, they'll then work with our version and come up with a compromise, which will have to be voted on by both houses and given to the president, and probably can't get that done. I mean, here we are speaking on as we adjourn, I think, tonight, and to go home for the holidays and come back in January. I don't think we'll have that compromise worked out before then, but let's talk for a moment of what the impact of that bill is on. You've done a lot of work as a county supervisor and knowing about the hospitals and about our Medicare, Medi-Cal programs, our so-called dish hospitals, things like that. I mean, there is some remarkable upgrading for quality of care in this bill. And
there's so many important and wonderful things in it. But I don't think we can talk about health care without remembering Senator Kennedy, who said that this was the cause of his life. And many of us came into public service because we were inspired by John Kennedy running for president. You went into the Peace Corps. I always thought once he was there that public service was one of the jewels in the crown of anyone's lifetime. So, and he continued that, and he continues to inspire us.
And you had such a special relation with Senator.
He was a great,
I can
great
see
friend.
your eyes welling up.
Yeah, well, he was such a great friend.
And
So what we did, I think, honored his legacy.
Let me tell one story.
Okay.
Because this just shocked me. And by the way, happy birthday, Anna.
Thank you.
Because I remember
we're all over the map, aren't we? Just like
what
our
a
regular
wonderful
conversations.
birthday. But I remember a few years ago, I had a small little party in Washington, and here Senator Kennedy with all his illness and everything. Who shows up? Senators never show up to House members'
really
parties ever.
No.
And here is Senator Kennedy coming to this small party just because
And
it was your birthday. And saying happy birthday to you. And you were privileged to attend his service, his memorial service.
Well, I think one of the great gifts and blessings in life are our friends, certainly our family and our friends. At the end of the day, that's, I think, who counts the most. And for us, we're privileged because we have an extended family of all of our constituents. That's how much we love them and want to give them what is, prepare for them what they are so worthy of. And that's why health care is so important. It is the most personal thing for each person. So of course we would have thousands of people showing up over the course of the summer and the fall in our telephone town hall meetings and in our in-person town hall meetings.
We hear all the tragic stories every single day of people who get turned down, denied, don't have money to cover in the street.
I had one night last week, or very late in the day, my staff brought me the communications that had come into the office that day. I have a bad habit. I read everything. And there was an email from a gentleman that lives in Santa Cruz County, and he told me about his son, who was relatively young, I believe in his 30s, who could not afford a health care policy, became ill, and he had lost him. Now, this is a father with all of his grief. It's not supposed to be that way, where a parent buries their own child. And he said, please, Congresswoman, please, pass the health care legislation. And I struggled for at least a couple of hours to find the right words to write back to him, because I thought, my God, in all of his grief, he's turning to me and talking to me. Mm-hmm. That's how important this is. So I'm really proud of the House bill. We worked so hard on it. And we reformed the insurance industry so they no longer can exact the pain from people and say that they have a pre-existing condition. Women certainly understand this in a very keen way. I think sometimes just being a woman is a pre-existing condition to the insurers. They won't be able to drop anyone anymore, especially if they get really sick. Imagine dropping people when they become ill.
Because they've capped out.
Children will be able to stay on their parents' health insurance policy up to the age of 27. We have prevention in the bill. We have a basic package of benefits.
And every insurance company has to provide them. You can't cherry pick anymore. They can't just go out and insure the healthy and ignore the sick.
I think in many ways we have kept and protected the best of what we have. And we have fixed the parts that are broken. It is absolutely essential that health insurance be available to everyone in the country. That we look after small businesses because they are having a very rough time, but we recognize that they want to do well by their employees, but we don't want this to be a financial burden to them. We know that you can have all the access in the world, but if it's not affordable, then you haven't access to darn thing.
Well, you know what's also very interesting, and I know you and we both spent a lot of
choice
on mental health, but we mental health is one of the basic.
That's right. One of the basic benefits
that you get covered now. It's not an option.
Yeah, that's right.
And therefore, we're going to treat it like a sickness, like anything else, like a broken bone.
The way it should be. That's right.
Also for substance abuse, people, alcohol, drugs. There's families and friends that need that kind of treatment. And
I really believe, Sam, that if this were in place right now, if this were the law and it's fully rolled out and people were enrolled in it and picking and choosing what they want, they can keep what they have and keep the doctors that they have if that's what they wish to do. No one is forced into anything. And of course, you and I were 1 billion% or are 1 billion% for a public option to create competition. But I really believe if people were enrolled in this right now, they would be very pleased with it. Mm-hmm. It most replicates, and I think we need to say this over and over again, we really shaped this so that it would function and look like and operate like what you and I have as members of Congress. If it's good enough for members of Congress, then obviously I think that passes the test
which
for people.
Which is the federal group plan.
That's right.
Like state employees have and local employees. It's a huge group. Therefore, they can't ask if you have any pre-existing conditions. They insure the whole group. And
well, it's like buying at Costco, though, because you have it's the largest insurance pool in the world. And there's a reason why when we go to Costco, you can buy 2 giant things of ketchup. Not that I need them anymore now the kids are grown. But there's a reason why you can buy them so cheap, because it's bulk buying. That's what a large insurance pool does. Mm-hmm. You have healthy people. You have children who seldom get sick. And you have some sick people
so we're going to treat the whole world like that. So everybody gets a discount.
Well, it's going to be universal in our country.
Whole country. Yeah. So it's not cherry picking. Can
I say one more thing about this? I always say to my constituents, we always love our history once it's been made. We just we learn it, we read it, we celebrate it, we think it's fabulous. But boy, when we're making history, it is tough, and people are just, they're grinding away at it and debating it, and that's okay. But I have no doubt, at now just 67 years old, 67 and 3 days old, that this is historic. This is historic.
I mean, that's the reason we're talking right now. Is this whole year really is historic, and I think you're starting to see. I mean. Today's the day that Time Magazine announced their Man of the Year, and you know who else is in that list?
Well, the number 4th choice was our Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. And Newsweek just said that this is one of the most historic half sessions of the Congress in the history of our country for major legislation passed to get the country back up on her feet, and also to shape a new kind of future. None of it is easy. We're not finished. We're not finished, Sam. You know how much more we have to do. But I think that historians will look back and treat the work of the first half of the 111th Congress with high regard and respect.
At least what the House has been able to accomplish, because the Senate is still far behind.
Yeah.
Well, we're in Hanukkah days right now, and next a week from today tomorrow will be Christmas Day, and we have New Year's, and I mean, I want to just express, how much appreciation I have for your partnership with me here in Congress of getting these things done.
Sam, I couldn't work with a finer human
But also,
being.
what a wonderful district we have. And Anna, was just, I was interested in last week, I was talking to my wife, Sherry, about the fact that people are complaining, governments and, it's spending too much, is doing this. If you look at this year, my water bill's gone up, my TV cable bill's gone up, my telephone bill's gone up, my garbage bill's gone up. Those are all private utilities. Yeah. You know what's gone down? My property taxes and my income taxes, because of the tax benefit that we gave people.
It's true.
And now that we, and we gave everybody on Social Security and on
veterans
a $250 check.
SSI. Those are the disabled.
We have, perhaps that's the holiday present in a stretched over a year, and hopefully we come back in January and finish the rest of it. What's your highest priority? We've only got a few moments left, but
two things. Very quickly, I want to say that I'm very pleased about a small bill that I introduced 3 years ago. Because of the ear-splitting advertisements on TV.
Love that bill. Love that
we have
bill.
regular programming, and then the ads come on, and they blast you out of your home. And one of the biggest complaints to the Federal Communications Commission
what's the name of the
for
bill?
50 years. It's called the Calm Act, but most people know it as the big noise law. But anyway, the House. That's right. The House passed that legislation yesterday. So. I think lowering the boom is on the way. And then on a serious note, this is a season of light. All the great faiths of the world recognize light as something that is inspirational. So I think that we have cast some light, Sam. Not really for ourselves, but for those that have given us their trust to come here to do the absolute best we know how for the country that we love so much and that we're so blessed to be citizens of. So,
safe travels as you go back to California.
Have a great, I hope maybe I'll get to see you during the holidays.
Happy holidays, and thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, Sammy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching.
For more information, contact one of Congressman Farr's district offices. You can also reach Congressman Farr in Washington or visit his website.